welcome to another Sharing Your Passion. I'm very honoured and privileged to have with me today a lovely guy called Rob Ungar. I've known Rob personally for a few months, just over a year I think it is now. And one of the things that has struck me about Rob is his wonderful integrity, his authenticity, and his wisdom and his passion for what he does. And I just felt so strongly that he, had to be a subject of this series. And so welcome, Rob. Thanks very much for joining me. I'm so pleased you've agreed to do this. It's been fantastic.
It's a pleasure. Really
now, Rob has what you might call a traditional background in the sense that he has a law degree, he's an MBA, he's a qualified lawyer. And he also has what you might call a non-traditional vocation, in a sense, in relation to that, or following on from that. So the first question I must ask you, Rob, is how did this traditional background become what you are now, which you can tell us about, which, as I understand it, you're an energy healer, you're a healing practitioner, you specialise with energy, you also teach energy work. And tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are and what you're doing now.
Where to start? Because there are so many, in life there are so many doorways into this work. And as you were asking me the question, I had to reflect back to what was the first doorway.
Right.
And I remember in the middle to middle 90s, working with a number of very skilled facilitators. I know we've both been through various different organizations at different times. And it always struck me that the work that they were doing was so much deeper than what was apparent on the surface. And there was obviously what people were saying, but there was obviously a wealth of information that they were picking up that went way beyond what I was aware of. Or had been aware of up until that point.
Right. And
I got and became very interested in how do they work the way they do, There's a particular teacher of mine, a lady called Marianne Somerville, who I think you probably have heard of.
From Insight Seminars, yeah.
I remember from Insight Seminars. And she has a tremendous empathy for people, but she was reading and working with people at a level way beyond what at that time I had the perception of what was going on. Questions came out of left field like, where did that come from? How did she see that? And I became...
Can you give us an example of that?
I don't think specifically. I remember when I was sitting in a seminar and somebody was obviously feeling particularly sad, or they had a particular expression or a particular something that they were saying, and she came in with a question which seemed to articulate and reflect exactly what they were experiencing, what they were feeling. Not only sometimes what they were feeling, but the actual issue itself and the circumstances around that issue, and she had somehow picked up the information from wherever as to what experience had potentially brought the person to this particular stage in their lives.
Yeah.
And it was like, I remember sitting there, how did they do that? And I suppose my journey has been, a part of my journey in any event, has been, I've had an innate curiosity to find out about myself, and through my own healing process and learning about myself, of course, I've learned a wealth about others.
Yeah.
And I've become, not that that's an end in itself to read people, not in any way, but to be able to support people to grow beyond whatever their fears are, or their wounding, or to move beyond their pain into a place of clarity or healing.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably, it's my innate curiosity for seeing the unseen. for looking behind the veil to see what really is going on in life.
Yeah.
You know, we are these people, we have these physical bodies, but there's a lot more going on than meets the eye. Now, one might say that's just one has trained oneself to be very perceptive, and I think perception is a lot of it. In fact, I have a friend in Australia who is an incredibly perceptive man, also incredibly gifted healer, though he doesn't necessarily use his gifts in that particular way. But he's also tremendously empathic, and his level of perception is at a level way beyond whatever I think I will ever achieve.
Right.
But that acuity, where is the line between that acuity of perception and really seeing? I mean, I suppose it depends on your opinion, whether you have a belief that there is an energy field, that we are beings with a human energy field, and depending on your belief or your perception, you'll look at it in different ways. Yeah. But I am very much of the opinion that as people, we do have a human energy field. And I remember when I started on my healing path, I actually wanted to read auras, which was the auric field, which was why I wanted to actually go down. I remember walking into to the healing training and looking around and being quite curious what the tables were for. You know, because actually my longing was to actually read the auric field, and then when I realized actually there was an opportunity to learn healing, I hadn't necessarily understood fully what that really meant and that journey meant. In the modality of healing that I use, there are different aspects of healing that we use. Sometimes we would work on the chakra system, sometimes we would work on the energy field, sometimes we work at the level of purpose and the level of intention. Okay. Because of people, maybe their belief systems are not necessarily in alignment or are in conflict. And then we work on the level of belief. And sometimes we also work at the level of essence, which pervades everything. It's the foundation from which all the energy system arises. Right. So it depends on the type of healing that's required, what is presented by the client, what we perceive is needed, many different aspects. It's a holistic energy system, really. I don't know, it's quite complex, maybe a little complex in the way I explain it, but I suppose what we do, I'm not doing anything that anybody else can't learn to do. Okay. Cool. I don't have any special psychic powers. I'm not extra special in any way. Right. But what I've done is that I've had a commitment to learning how to perceive and how to work with the human energy field in a particular way to support the clients I work with. And different people have different aspects in the way they work. For example, I like the NLP model, which is visual, kinesthetic, auditory, because it nicely explains how people work with other people. I'm quite a visual person, so I see things. When I meet somebody or when I'm working with a client, I might see a particular area that needs to be worked on. Right. Whereas somebody else might feel empathically and get exactly the same information. Whereas others might hear, you know, it depends what your strengths are or what your background is, and also how you were brought up, to the way that you actually perceive. And there is no right way to do it. Okay. Cool. Fantastic. And also, this is not something, I'm not healing. This is about supporting the client to have facilitate their own healing process. I see, absolutely. I don't claim to necessarily heal anybody. This is about supporting the client to heal themselves. Beautiful.